Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Rezmha Aurellianty with the student number is 2061301. I'm from class D and I'm going to do a practicum which the title is Qualitative Solubility. In this practicum, I'm going to do 3 experiments. The first is observing qualitative solubility, the second is factor that affect to solubility, and the third is saturated, unsaturated, and supersaturated solution. Before we go to the practicum, I'm going to explain what is qualitative solubility. Quantitatively is the solubility of a substance that is expressed as the concentration of solute in a saturated solution at a certain temperature and pressure. Solubility is expressed in milliliter of solvent that can resolve a gram of a substance. For example, 1 gram of salicylic acid will dissolve in 550 ml of water. Solubility can also be expressed in unit of molarity, and percent. This is the material and tools that we need for this practicum. There is sugar, salt, talcum powder, wet flour, water, 4 transparent or clear glasses, and 4 teaspoons. Now I'm going to start the first experiment, that is observation of qualitative solubility. In this video, I already add water to each glass until it is a half of glass, and then I put 1 teaspoon for each ingredient, that is sugar, salt, talc or powder, and wet flour into each glass, and then I will stir for about 1 minute like this video. Now we can see and observe what the phenomenon that occur in this video during I stir all of the ingredient for about 1 minute. From these observations, we can see that it can be concluded that the sugar and the salt is water soluble, while the powder and the flour is difficult or insoluble in water. The second experiment is factor that affect to solubility. In this experiment, I already prepared a glass with a half of water, and then I add a spoonful of sugar, and then I stir it and record the time with stopwatch until it takes to dissolve the sugar. In this first experiment, in experiment 2 is using a plain water. The next step in this experiment 2 is the same like the previous step, but this is using a boiling water. From this observation, it can be concluded that temperature is one of the factors that affecting solubility. The higher the temperature, the faster the solubility of the substance, while the lower the temperature, the slower the solubility of the substance will be. The next step is effect of stirring, using to experiment with stirring and without stirring. In the first experiment is I'm doing experiment without stirring. I already fill the glass with a half of plain water, and then I add a spoonful of sugar, and then I record the time with stopwatch until it takes to dissolve the sugar. The next experiment in this step is experiment with stirring. In this second glass, I already filled the glass with a plain water, and then I add a spoonful of sugar, and then I stir and record the time with stopwatch until it takes to dissolve the sugar. From these observations, it can be concluded that stirring also determines the solubility of a solute. The greater the amount of stirring, the solute generally becomes easier to dissolve. The greater the stirring, the more the substance is dissolved. Said Atkins, 1994. Another factor that can affect the solubility of a substance include pH, temperature, solvent, shape and particle size, the electric constant of solvent, and existence of other substance, example surfactant, complex form, similar ionic, and etc. And the last but not least experiment is experiment 3, introduction of unsaturated, saturated, and supersaturated solutions. In this experiment, I already prepared a glass of cold water, a glass of plain water, a bowl of boiling water, and salt. In this experiment, I add a spoonful of salt into the water, and then I stir until it dissolves. So, this is the solution with addition of 1 teaspoon of salt. It is called unsaturated solution. Unsaturated solution is where the disappear phase or the solute is less than the required value, or the reaction takes place incorrectly after reacting, so that the resulting solution will be dilute. The next step is I put another spoonful of salt into the salted water, and then I stir it until everything is dissolved. This solution with the addition of second salt is called saturated solution. Saturated solution is where the disappear phase or solute is suitable. The solution rate and the precipitation rate have the same value, so that the reaction that takes place right after reacting. In the next step is I add a spoonful of salt again until it doesn't dissolve. Doesn't dissolve means there are still salt crystals. As you can see in this video, the salt crystal is in the middle in the glass. As you can see in this video that the addition of the salt seems insoluble, right? So that we heat the glass in a container that filled with a boiling water. And then we wait for a moment until the temperature of the plain water is raised. After that, we put out the glass from the container, and then we stirring the insoluble salt until it dissolves all. After all dissolved, we chill the glass into the cold water. This cold water is used to restore the temperature that has risen to the solubility of the salt. Then we wait for a moment until the temperature of the solution is back to normal. As you can see in this video, that the solution with the third addition of salt, there is a salt precipitate at the bottom of the glass. This is called a supersaturated solution. Supersaturated solution is where the disappear phase or the solute is more than the required value, so that the resulting solution will produce a precipitate. Because of that, when the salt is added again, the dispersing phase or the solvent is not able to dissolve it again, and it will produce more sediment. Okay, my practicum is done. I think that's all from me. Thank you for your attention and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.